Hello there. It's another video. Today in this video, I'm going to once again talk about masculinity, a theme that I think is very important in today's day and age, and I think is dying out actually. And I don't think it's been seen as, in the modern agenda, as something to be proud of. And I hope to bring it back to something to be proud of, being a man. So we're obviously living in a day and age now where we have to be very measured and controlled about what we say. And we have to, this is a system now where we've just got to be very measured and very controlled about what we say. The education system is very different to what I like to call true education is. So before we go into the depths of masculinity, might even split this video into two topics. The first is education to become a man. What you're educated with, what you absorb, what you learn, and then the second part of the video, I might go more into the concept of masculinity. And a lot of these stories, a lot of these lessons I've learned becoming an adult, living on my own, surviving on my own. More so than actually being in the education system. So let's start with the education system. The UK, the British education system. Right. From the very start, there is class in the education system, and there is a sense of meritocracy in the education system. You have to be able to perform in a certain way and think in a certain way and do in a certain way in order to ascend up the ladders of academia. So we have preschool, we have primary school, we have secondary school, university. It's all in layers, and you need to have certain grades and certain assessments to get to the next layer. And if you don't, you're seen as someone who can't progress. You're seen as someone who won't be doing very well in school, so therefore his options in life are limited. There is a sense of pressure. There's a sense of pressure in order to get to that level. So the education system is very, very meritocratic, but it's also very linear in its approach. You go in there is only one way to get a good grade in a particular work. Forget the objective subjects such as mathematics, and maybe sciences and languages. Let's look at something like the political sciences and psychology, economics. You're taught to focus on particular theories, particular ways of thinking, and if you deviate from that, then you deviate from the social norms, and then your grades are not seen as very good. If you don't use what is taught, if you don't recite what is taught in some frame of the way, and if you go against those principles, and you're not ticking what has already been the suggestions, what already suggestions in the marking examination guides, then once again you're docked off marks and your points, and you don't progress. So you have to think like the professor thinks. You have to think in that way. So say, for example, I don't know, you're doing an essay on the economic growth, and if you talk about certain things, there will be certain phrases and hints and suggestive keywords that will be included in the examiner's report that you then have to actually hit in order to get those points. So in the case of economic development, you have to make those assumptions that we have developing economies, emerging economies. You have to mention certain keywords, and then you have to assume that, you know, there is that common assumption that these people they don't have as much money, and that there are common pitfalls, and that there needs to be aid. So the common theme of aid and development from one countries to the third world countries. So there's a common thing in linearity in the education system, and if you don't follow a certain train of thought, you will not get the marks. And you'll also notice another thing is the abstractness of it. We are tactile human beings, and for some reason or the other, growing up in the current education system, 90% of your time you are using a particular limb of your body, and that is your hands, to pass grades. You're not taught, you know, the full capacity of your body. You're not really taught a lot of other things about how to build, how to create, how to construct physical things, how to survive, and how to understand the changing of the elements and the actual surroundings around you, you know. But instead, you spend a lot of the time confined in the space in between four walls and told to read and write. And they are great skills to have, but you're doing it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. There's hundreds of other skills that you could be learning. You know, hundreds of other skills that you could be learning, and yet you know, because there's so many things survivalist. I haven't even expanded on everything that I would love to learn, and there could be things that have been taught, you know, such as working with fire, you know, working with wood, working with water, understanding how to survive, understanding the nutrients around you and what things you can grow naturally, and how to figure out whether things are able to be eaten or not, and how to deal with the actual financial institutions that are in this country, and how to deal with things when things do go wrong in adult life, and what are the measures that you can take. The practical side of life is something you can only discover once you've left the education system. And most importantly, how to make money. What are the ways to make money? You know, is the 9 to 5 the only way? What are the other options? Can we do little experiments and try out different ways of making money? These are not things that are taught in school. Most of it, from my experience, is textbook learning. So, just gonna have some water. I like to carry a big bottle of water in the van because I don't have running water in my love wagon. So we get to a certain point, and this is from coming from my education system. It's great. It's great for certain things. It helps you think, you know, in ways. But you become a thinker. You become a thinker. You become a logistician. You become a writer. But you often you're not as. I don't think you're not as sensory in terms of your sensory awareness. You're not as aware of the world as you could be, because the education system is linear. So now bringing that to the next topic of what product does that create of individuals? We become thinkers, we become readers, we become writers, but do we become doers? Do we become entrepreneurs? Do we become creatives? Do we become creators? Do we create value when we come out? Because so far you've just been regurgitating and reciting and reading and writing and reflecting, but where's the creating? You know, what are we creating? This is where I think there is a little bit of a not a misfit, but gap, a void between real life and the education system. Because in real life, you're plundered with problems that the education system can't actually resolve for you, bar reading and writing. So say, for example, you know, you're out and about in the world, and you're working in 9 to 5. You're actually delivering for a big conglomerate corporate, but then you don't feel fulfilled. So that's one aspect of it. So you don't feel like you've created actual value, because you've just been serving the conglomerates and the corporates. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is you're going out in the wild, and all of a sudden you've got all this nature, all this absolute, nature's playground is here, and yet you don't know how to forage, you don't know how to get food, you don't know how to cook from the wild, you don't know what's right, what you can eat, you don't know how to build a shelter, and it's because it's not really, it's not. Yes, there's Boy Scouts groups and stuff like that, but it's not a centre point of education. Um, it's not a centre point of education. You're also very much encouraged to go to university. It's seen as one of the central options. You're not, there's it's a lot of there's a lot of traditional education. There's traditional education university systems that are very much promoted, but a lot of the other systems are not. The alternative education systems are seen as a bit weird and not functional and not normal, even though they may be more efficient ways of getting your education or getting that certificate. So you actually, what happens is you become narrowed in. Think about the hundreds and thousands of schools. Everyone's teaching the same subject. Everyone's teaching the same curriculum. What does that say? There's so many different types of education, and as kids, as young adults, we want to explore. We naturally learn to explore, but every time there's a common theme of you have to focus, and constrict on one particular thing. So for 18 years, you're focusing on your curriculum, and you can't deviate, because if you deviate, you get distracted. And even if you want to learn something that's really crazy, there isn't an option there, because you can't deviate from the curriculum. You have to learn a certain thing. You have to focus on that for 18 years, no matter what kind of personality type you are, no matter what your interests are. So you come out and you think very linearly. You think very linearly because you no longer can, you've kind of been indoctrinated the system to think in that certain way. So you have to think, okay, what's the next step? What can I do next? What can I do next? What's the next step? Whereas in life, in the reality of life, there may be multiple different avenues, and you've got to spend a little bit on this avenue, a little bit on that avenue, and that way you can kind of grow your portfolio and actually have the end goal of buying yourself more time and making yourself more money, and also letting your money, most importantly, work harder for you, because you're not spending time on just traditional incremental value, and you are taking risks. Sometimes you have to take risks, but when are risks very much valued in education? When it's not a very risk-taking activity, is it? Reading and recording and learning about curriculum. Risks are not something that is encouraged. In fact, it's the entire opposite. It's incrementality, it's linearity, and it's stability. There is not much of chaos or different deviations from the curriculum or different senses of what is good risks to take in an education system. It's very much sheltered and very much confined to the four walls and to a book and to paper. Whereas in reality, life is all about taking risks. Sometimes you have to sometimes take risks in order to enjoy the benefits of something. So this is just something that I wanted to talk about, if anything. So back on it again, just have to arrange a few things. So that's the first aspect, so the linearity of education system. Now, I think that has a big impact on masculinity, because we end up becoming very conservative. We don't become very much risk takers. We think there's only one path to success, and that's the only path to success, and that's the only resemblance of success in life, which is to get a good job, a good career, and stable income. And that's it. That's the end of the life. Then you have to keep working. You can't have normal time to yourself anymore. You have to work set hours, and then you can wait till retirement till you can enjoy your flourishes and the wealth you brought for the last 10, 20 years of your life, where you've got all your prime, your 20s and 30s, where you can actually enjoy life with good health, and work hard, but enjoy something with good health and actually be creative and do something that you actually enjoy. But the linearity and the education system and the gap it does between just 18 years of very intense, do this, and you come out and it's gone. All the buffers and all the platforms and all the guidance is gone, can create a lost individual and can be responsible for what I call lost masculinity, because now you feel subdued. You feel very subdued because you've been put in this education system, and you've spent 18 years learning a particular curriculum, and which is very much generalised and standardised by the government for schools across the UK, maths, English, French, geography, history, and not only those particular subjects, but particular things to be taught. So you're very much in a sense of conformity, and so you tend to fall into a sense of conformity as well. You tend to fall into a sense of the traditional path in order to make your living, and in order to before you can retire. So it creates a sense of lost masculinity because a lot of men, we become homogenous, and we end up doing the same things, and we don't become adventurers because we're homogenous. You know, we're not risk takers. We don't become adventurers. We follow the traditional path. For some of us, it may be very comforting and it might be very exciting. We might be very happy to do that. But there's a minority. I know there's a minority of you, just like me, who is in the system, and you don't feel like you're masculine enough. You know. You know. So yeah, that's literally it. That is literally it. So this is the situation. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. So it creates something called lost masculinity. And why do I say that? Well, when I was in a 9 to 5, when I was in a regular 9 to 5, not all 9 to 5s, but when I was in certain 9 to 5s, I didn't feel like I was the man. Didn't feel manly, because I wasn't the boss of my own time. I wasn't being able to express my ideas. I wasn't being able to take measured risks. I wasn't adventurous. I was just being told what to do. Here's your deliverable, do it, and that's it. You just seen as a number. How can you feel like a man when you're just a number? It's just the two things like that. You can't be a man and just a number. You can't be a man and just a mule. As a man, we have to. For me, I always think of men. We are providers, but we're also, we also want to be charismatic. We also want to be, earners, creators, value givers, value providers. And in some jobs, you get micromanaged. You get controlled. You don't get the chance to be a man. And so this is why I say for a lot of jobs nowadays, they're very humbling, but they should be short term. You need to grow your own venture. You need to grow your own ideas. You need to find your passion, pursue it, and help people and actually create value, rather than sit out and do the 9 to 5. For some people, it's okay, but this is where I felt a sense of lost masculinity, because I feel like I'm a man. I'm physically a man. I've passed the stages of puberty. I'm a man, but yet I don't feel like the man when I'm going into work. I'm feeling like a beta. I'm feeling like a guy who's just been told what to do, is subordinate and not able to actually express himself and generate value and offer various different channels of value, various different streams of value. And it's a lot of people too afraid to say it. And not only does that happen, you become a lost masculinity, and that adds on, because now you double down with debt and responsibilities as you try and increase your expectations of what it takes to be an adult. So you want to be, have a house, but you can't afford a house in the UK, so you go on rent. You want to have a nice car, you can't afford a car, so you pay car bills. You end up paying part of what's known as the credit economy, and so you end up getting sucked into it and swallowed into it, and you actually can't really enjoy life anymore, because now you don't feel like the man. Because how can you feel like the man when you're being forced to do something out of no volition, simply because you're living paycheck to paycheck, because you're paying for lifestyle expenses that are not actually one-off expenses but are recurring payments. So you end up feeling like lost masculinity, and then you try and bring back that masculinity. Well, you see it all the time where people have workplace politics and workplace aggression and passive aggression, but what are they fighting for? Because there's nothing much to fight for apart from a little pay rise or a little promotion, but you're not winning. It's still not your own venture. It's still not your own creation. It's still not your own adventure. So what are you, what is that? And this is just personal perspectives of mine, but I'm hoping it relates to certain people who feel that way. I want to be the man. I want to be chivalrous. I want to be this warrior, but yet I'm going into a place, work, and I'm not able to express that. And that's because of what you're taught in the education system and all the systems and all that. So that's a reflection on that, and that's caused a lost masculinity. But what would I have done different? What would I recommend, or what would I say? Because it's all well and good having problems, but I'm a man of solutions. So first of all, I'm very big on traditional, practical education. Okay, so this is how I do it, and this is how I think would encourage masculinity. I'd say there's healthy risks. So I'd let, so say for example, there's it's a big wide forest. Just make sure, you go out in the forest and you tract a little bit, but you go out there, you explore, you see what happens, you take those risks. And forest school would be an amazing idea I'd have brought up. But the trouble is, there's big safeguarding practices and stuff like that. But again, because of all this bureaucracy and all these regulations, kids are unable to take risks and be kids, unable to explore as much as they used to because of these safeguarding practices that are in place. You can't go out and explore. But I'd have something like a forest school where you actually go out and you learn with nature. So if you're doing maths, you go out there and say, okay, we've got these set of leaves. Can everyone get the same kind of leaves? Let's count the leaves. Let's learn how to count numbers then. And that way you can learn. You always learn with a physical anchor. You don't learn abstract, you learn with a physical anchor. Because then you can more easily apply that, in abstract terms rather than the other way around and trying to think through digits. You can actually think through, think with physical objects and with trees. And then I'd learn how to cook, how to survive, how to learn bushcraft. These are things that will help you out, and also, how to trade, how to bargain, how to be confident. These are personality skills, how to learn that. I would never have kids. I just think it's way too complicated, but this is my idea and take on the current system. We've talked about the education system. We've talked about lost masculinity. And so the final aspect of the video is what it takes to be a man. It's something I could talk about for ages because there's so many ways of perspectives of it. But I think to end with this video, actually, after I talked for about 20 minutes, the principles of traditional masculinity and how it applies in terms of my lifestyle. So the number one thing is risk. You have to take some form of risk. If you ain't going to be taking risk, if you're conformist, how can you be manly? Because you've just taken what everyone else has taken, so you're just homogenous. And it shows, how can you have to have some form of deviance, to the path, to the societal norm, some form of that streak, that deviant streak, that I'm going to do it differently, I'm going to change it this time, I'm not going to follow the rules. That rebellion is a little bit masculinity. That is a sense of masculinity. So how to apply it? Well, obviously I live in the van, I live off the grid, I prefer help it, I prefer entrepreneurialism, idea creation, and I prefer my job to be surrounded around that idea creation, entrepreneurialism, strategy, rather than just subordination. So that's one way I approach it, how I do it. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. Second aspect is just don't be too nice. So there's a difference between nice and kindness. Nice is just, so kindness is actually going and helping it through doing, through showing effort. Say for example you're out with a girl, you're taking her on a date. How are you going to show you that you can't? You can't just say nice words. What are you doing? What experiences are you offering when you're with that girl? So when it comes to dating. So say for example, take a third person context out of it. You can be nice and say all the nice things to a girl on a date and say, I do this, I do this, and it's great, that's amazing. But what are you? How are you going to be kind? Are you going to be doing it, to that girl? Are you going to be giving her a nice challenge? Maybe let's go for a race. Let me help you out. Let me show you some tricks. Let's do something together. Let's adventure. Let's go for a hike. If you go for a hike, we'll do something together. We'll build resilience. I'll give you resilience, and I can show you through adventure activity how I treat you. Let's do an activity. Let me cook for you. This is kindness. But also it's setting boundaries and saying, look, I prefer if we do it like this. I prefer doing that way. I want you to succeed, but I don't think that's the right thing for you to do. You can't force anything upon anyone, but you can often offer guidance and mentorship and your own insights. And that is kindness. But nice is just saying all the nice things, but not actually doing anything for them, or not showing possessiveness or something like that. So there's certain areas, and that shows you being a man, and that shows that kind of common respect. And So yeah, these are some of the ideas I've got. It's a bit of a blubber. Could be a bit of a waffle, but I thought sometimes I'm going to have videos like this where I am going to chat through a lot of the thoughts I've got in my head, and hopefully there'll be someone out there who can clarify these thoughts, and maybe come up with some theories about it. But this is just takes on my on the education system, on the idea of lost masculinity, and the idea of true masculinity. But this is a very subjective topic, so it's up for everyone's debate. I'm not the only speaker on this topic. I know there's lots of hyper-masculine figures out there on the internet who have their own takes on it. I'm just here to give my own perspective on it because I'm living on my own, and I'm surviving on my own, and so I have my own views on certain things as well, as everyone has a right to. So, feel free. Just a little plug in before I finish this video. I've just got a book that's come out called 24 on the Road. It's a book on Amazon. And it talks about my journey so far, living on the road, living as a solo survivalist hermit in the UK. There's not many of us around. Many of us are very much in the system, very much integrated. But there's a few of us who are, especially young ones like me, who are deciding an alternative path of self-discovery, of self-escape, and getting around these areas of the UK and exploring and enjoying life, and working hard but enjoying life, and living a simpler life, a quieter life, where the only songs I hear are the sounds of my van, sounds of people walking by, sounds of my work, and sounds of music. So if you want to know what that story's been, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you are interested in knowing about the story, 24 on the Road is out on Amazon. It will also be out on my website when I get things sorted in terms of admin wise. But yeah, I'm just thinking I'll just use YouTube to try and help promote it as well. So thank you so much for listening to my rambling, and hopefully you've picked up something from it. You can understand what I'm trying to say. It's not just all gibberish, and hopefully my book is a lot more much more well laid out, and is an interesting read for anyone who chooses to pick that book up. Reserve it on Amazon. Links will be on bio. Thank you so much.